Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Tuesday night. I almost forget that every time. I almost started it on time tonight. I was trying my best to get this kicked off on time. I need to do a little better job at that. But tonight, so far, we have Blue 823 and Rosie and Kelly. And should be another great chat, as usual. And I'm going to let intro. Would you like to do an intro, Blue?
Well, thanks for the invite. As always, good to see Rosie back from, I don't know if it was a vacation or what she was doing last week, but good to have her back on the chat as always. College kids, we just got done kind of discussing a little bit, and I don't know, once I kind of get something stuck in my head, that's just kind of where I focus there for a while. But all you little shits that are out in college right now that are skipping out on class, your parents need to come up and give you an ass whooping, for one. And the colleges need to take a stand against you and fail you, or what not fail you, but if you missed a day, you're absent. You know, TR had said that, there's coloring books and Play-Doh and Legos. I'll bring my 6-year-old up to the college, and we'll make a day out of it if you guys are too hurt to move on with your life. So that's my little opening spiel. So this is going to be a good chat.
All right, Rosie, go right ahead.
Yeah, hi, everybody. I was out on my first overnight urban adventure in the RV. Last Tuesday night, had a lot of fun. I figured you guys would be talking about the election, and of course, I was right, going back and looking at the feed. There's a lot of stuff going on, guys. The whole friggin' game has been changed. So glad to be here, TR. Thanks for the invite, Blue. Good to see you. And let me grab my coloring book, and we'll get underway here.
Yeah. We just did a flat out election coverage tonight. It turned out to be a really good chat. I actually had several people comment on different videos and in different other chats since that, and several of them, I didn't think we was covering it that good, but I had several people told me they turned the TV off and just listened to us. It was more enjoyable, I guess. But anyway, yeah, we'll get back to that, or the coloring books and Play-Doh and crap. And anyway, but as usual, Rosie, if you got a not agenda, but some stuff you'd like to get out there, the floor is yours.
It's almost difficult to know where to begin, because last Tuesday night really flipped everything on its head in the financial world. And TR, one of the contentions I had was that it would be very difficult for Donald Trump to win, because he had a very difficult electoral college road. And I never imagined that he would be able to carry in Ohio, which were really the two blocks to his success in that evening. So you really have to put that in perspective against the polling that had taken place for the 5 to 6 months prior to the election. And although it showed the election tightening up coming into the final days, and of course, I think the thing with Comey just disgusted people with constant Hillary stuff coming up. The reality is that 90% of the polling was incorrect out there. And that polling, of course, permeated as far as Wall Street, because nobody, I don't think, was more shocked with the outcomes of the elections than the people up on Wall Street and the financial world. And I remember last Tuesday night sitting in my rig and going back late at night and listening to your replay of your chat on there, and all night long in my own, I had my own hangout too, a short one on the road with Wi-Fi and stuff. And I was watching the overseas markets Tuesday night. And at one point, the Dow futures were down 800 points going into the next day. Well, I stepped away from my own hangout for 15 minutes and I got on the horn to Hong Kong and I bought everything that I could fucking load up on that stuff, because when you see that kind of craziness take place, when before anything is even finalized and a president takes position and things are just finalized, it's just the height of ridiculousness, and it turned out to be a perfect opportunity to jump back in about, I guess it was over 1,000 points now on the Dow. And as a result, I'm back up from basically zero to about 50–60% invested in that. The reality is Trump winning to me was not an idea that should have been difficult for the market to take. I mean, in the week running up to the election, when the Comey news kind of backed off a little bit, and they came out and said, no, there's nothing here, it's okay. You saw that market start to go up for 3 or 4 days before the election, because everybody assumed that Hillary was going to, not everybody, but a good chunk of the big money assumed that Hillary was going to win the election. Of course, we know that didn't happen. But why should Donald Trump be a negative for the economy any more than Hillary Clinton? And arguably, Hillary Clinton could be a much more negative to the market. And it was really borne out in the day after the election. That evening, those futures went down strong on election night. People were panicking. They were on my side chat. Rosie, you better sell everything you got and head for the hills. It's time to prep. And let that be a lesson to people. At those moments in time when you have the ridiculous passions holding sway, and people assuming the worst outcome because prior to that they'd have had a run-up expecting Hillary to be elected. But remember this, Donald Trump has a Republican Congress now. For the first time, I guess, I don't know whether Reagan managed to have a slim majority in early 80 or whatever, but he'll actually be able to get something done within the Congress. And the thought of a tax cut has Wall Street absolutely salivating now. And like I said, everything has changed now. The whole game has been flipped on its head. We have what could arguably be called an inflation play coming in now, where we've seen the 10-year note, which is the 10-year U.S. government note, which is the basis for mortgages in this country. That yield has gone from 1.7% to 2.25% in less than a week. Okay, I mean, we're talking about big jumps in interest rates. And it's one of the reasons I've cautioned over the last few months that if you have long-term holdings and bonds and things like that, you're going to get savaged with these rates right now. They're going to strip your value out like crazy, because this 35-year bull market in lower interest rates looks like it's coming. It looks like it's come to an end now, and that's going to be very telling. So the real issue now is, where do we go from here? We've had this super rally from up to almost 19,000 on the Dow now. Is there going to be, as there often is after elections, a post-election euphoria that fades away after a week or so? Will this mark the top of the move? You know, it's really hard to say because the market's had such a strong head of steam underneath of it. We've had the airlines. You know, you guys know I've talked about the United Airlines before. And some of these things are coming to light. The Bank of America's at $20 a share. The airlines roaring up. The transportations. There's a lot of expectations being built into this. Now, the one caution of all this is that the volume that our rally's been built on since 2009, this whole move from 7,700 on the Dow to almost 19,000 has been built on declining volume, which means every month, every year that's gone by since 2008, 2009, we have less and less and less volume pushing the market higher. And that's not an indicator. That's not a healthy kind of situation. You want more people participating. You want more expansion of trading and volume as prices go higher. You don't want to see less. This is why, as somebody said on the side chat, it's very abnormal to see this type of thing in this type of market. So just be aware. I'm going to be taking profits and standing aside again. And as Jay John says, yes, markets had not priced in a Trump win at all. So now you have to go back and ask yourself, how were the polls so wrong? And what does that mean for economists that have to grind up future elections? Probably it means they couldn't reach people to properly poll them on cell phones and things like that. People talk about a decreased black vote, minority vote turnout, things like that. But we have a dollar that's going gangbusters right now. And it's, we have to be very careful on an international front. If we don't push, the dollar doesn't get pushed up too far, it's going to start affecting our exports here. We have to be careful, too, that the interest rates don't spike up too far too fast, or it could choke off the housing market. I mean, there's a big difference between a 3% and a 4% mortgage. Okay, a big difference in percentage terms. It's 25% more expensive to carry a mortgage at 4% compared to 3%. So although everybody's euphoric and things like that, and everybody's happy, and of course I'm a libertarian, so I'm like, my candidate blew himself up before the election. But I'm just saying there's room to be a little cautious in here too, and just be aware of a potential little backlash that comes in here, because this type of move is unprecedented. I'd hate to think that this whole move from 2008 upward from 7,700 on the Dow to 19,000, this has been the final little blow-off spike up here. So we have to be very, 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 very careful. Now, some people would mention there's some things about some of the ballot initiatives in California that went down, and the ammunition being registered and things like that. California goes one way and the rest of the country goes another way. So, but I thought it was interesting that here we had two ballots on the death penalty. One ballot said, do away with the death penalty and have life imprisonment. Do away with all these ridiculous appeals and just put people in prison for life. That failed. The one that said revamp the death penalty to make the route to execution faster passed. So there are some traces of conservatism here when it does come to crime and all that. So I'm very cautious. Again, I would tell people, if you have long-term bond mutual funds and things like that that hold long-term obligations, you could really get hammered in here on these markets, because it looks like the inflation play might be coming in this way. We've pumped a lot of money into this, a ton of money into this system, and not much of it's ever been taken up. And we have to be aware that it doesn't get all taken up at one time. We already talked about the employment TR. We talked about the difficulties of finding employees now. Very, very difficult to get competent employees. I see help wanted signs anywhere. So I really think wage inflation is definitely on the horizon, because there's really not enough decent workers out there, I think, to fill the needs. So if anybody has any issues or questions on the side chat or anything, but that's my read on it. So let's just see what happens. But I know most of the people in the chat are very happy with the outcome of the election. If for no other reason, it kind of ensures that we're not going to have a Supreme Court that's loaded down with liberals for life on there. And that's a very important thing. So
if TR doesn't have any questions directly about the financial part, can you touch on your ballot questions again, as far as the death penalty in that? I heard what you said, but I mean, is there any more with that? Like, like they're trying to fast track the death penalty now?
We haven't executed anybody in 16 years. We have a death penalty in California, but they got all involved with got all involved with appeals process, and the injection is not humane. You have to have this certain type of injectable, and then the company stopped providing this injectable because they had a issue with the death penalty. So they tried to secure that overseas, that injectable for the to put you to sleep or whatever. So basically, we have San Quentin here is just, and that's where California's death row is. It's just overloaded with people. It's crowded. Nobody's moving on and it's all bogged in this appeals process that just goes on and on and on and on. And of course, when you can't afford to represent yourself, who can in most of these death penalty cases, the government's paying. Hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars a year between all your appeals and all your upkeep and maintenance to house you. So people are really getting tired of that bullshit in California. So I thought it was very telling that they supported reforming the path to death and rejected doing away with the death penalty, which I thought was interesting.
No, that's actually
they approved the recreational marijuana bill, which is not a surprise. It's almost like closing the barn door after the horse is out. I'm not surprised the registering to buy ammunition passed. We'll see how that works if somebody decides that impacts their constitutional right to gun ownership, whether ammunition is considered part of the usable function of a gun to have that. So it's going to be interesting there to see what happens. But
the only
temper your enthusiasm a little bit here and just kind of throttle back a little bit.
Yeah, I'm glad to see that that nobody wants to do away with the death penalty, but the part that actually, it's kind of, you've got them saying one thing, but yet flipping on the other one that, we don't want to do away with the death penalty. We need to look into revamping the process to make it a faster process, but yet we are not going to give ourselves the right to protect ourselves without registering the bullets. That's nuts to me.
This is the way that things go. I don't want to monopolize this, TR, but let's drill down on California. California has a legislature that effectively doesn't do anything. Every major issue in California is put up to referendum. Okay, I don't even know what the hell I don't even know who my legislative representative is in Sacramento. It's a big joke. Every issue goes on a ballot initiative and it's voted on by the voters. So effectively, if they get the 100,000 votes for the petition or whatever, it ends up on a ballot. And you never know how things are going to go. 4 years ago, that legalization of marijuana failed in California. This time around, it passed because of medicinal marijuana so rooted in the system. But it is strange because we have this Barbara Boxer and Dianne Feinstein mentality that guns kill people. People don't kill people. And if we just remove the guns, it's going to be great. It'll be a beautiful world. We can all sit around reading poetry under trees and eating figs and everything. And it's la la land. We know it's absolutely ridiculous, but illogical is often held sway out here. But I suspect it may stumble, the ammunition thing may stumble on constitutional grounds of the right to bear arms shall not be abridged, so we'll see. Some smart person will take that in and get that flipped probably.
Probably being that it's California, I'm not trying to insult you or anything, but you live there, I know. I would imagine they'll come up with some kind of system like Illinois has, where you got like a card where you're you done the background check, blah blah blah, and you probably just like show that to buy ammo, show that to buy a gun, that kind of thing. I think that's probably about the best they could hope for.
Yeah, it's like there's some good things about here too. I mean, you get a lot of press on the negative political stuff, but you know, Proposition 13 probably passed what 40 years ago or whatever, which allowed people to keep their homes and prevent the taxes from going up. The property prices were soaring, and the local governments were coming in and hitting the taxes up and up and up, and people were getting pushed out of their homes. And when Howard Jarvis put through Proposition 13, if you buy a home, your taxes are fixed at 1% of the purchase price, which means if I bought this place for $186K and it's worth $500K now, I'm still paying $1,860 property taxes on a $500,000 property. So there have been some beneficial things that have kept government from going crazy with exploding revenues and adding all these bells and whistles to what's already a very large public sector and new and better programs. So there are some positive things, and I certainly think that's one of the best ones.
Yeah, I wouldn't say California is the most terrible place to live, unless you're a gun owner. But even then, it's still not the worst. I mean, there's worse places to live.
You're certainly allowed to keep a gun. You're certainly allowed. We have gun stores here. We have a couple of gun ranges, but it's not a state that's supportive of that. It's impossible to open up a shooting range. It's impossible to get the zoning clearance. I don't care if you're out in the middle just shooting over into a hill. You know, they just it's the whole climate of zoning and all that kind of stuff just makes it very difficult. But we've never had any problem purchasing guns, and you know, we have to keep them in cases when we're traveling and keep them locked and all that. But you know, the stupid 10-round magazine limit, I'm forced to go to Reno to buy the 15-round magazine for my Beretta, you know, to get around that ridiculousness of those kind of laws.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's still better than living in New York City or some other place.
New Jersey, yeah.
Yeah. But, you know, so, but, I mean, that's just the way it is. But we've talked about this before, maybe not on this one, maybe on Sunday night. That's kind of the way the country was set up. It was actually supposed to be up to states as long as they didn't step on the Constitution.
Yeah, they're just going to say you're an advocate of states' rights, and there we go. You know, individual determination by states, i.e., you get the stupid leadership that you deserve, right? So that's the point.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And like I say, as long as they don't step on the Constitution, that's the whole thing. It was, okay, you can pass any law you want as long as you don't step on the Bill of Rights. And if you don't like California's laws, get the hell out. You know, that's really the way it was set up.
I don't agree with that, TR. Can you imagine all those people from California flooding our states?
Well, the ones that would flood out is the ones that we like.
Right, I'm just playing.
Daily Shooter and people like that, you know. Because the ones that love what's going on with, say, gun laws and stuff like that, you know, they're going to cling to it. I think that's the right way to go, you know. And as long as they don't, I mean, many of us would think that they have already stepped on the Second Amendment right.
You know, the tragedy is in politics that politics really follows economics. If things are okay and marginally okay, then people don't upset the apple cart. So, you know, you have Democrats that basically you have a hammerlock on the state capitol there. But like anything else in life, you overplay your hand, and over time you get these reversals that come in. You get a grand sweep of people because, you know, you might have a collapse and a crisis in your state like we had under former Governor Gray Davis, where he got recalled from office and Arnold came in, a Republican. So you never know which way the winds will twist in the future. So I would expect the pendulum will swing back one day, especially since it's so clearly defined who's in charge. And it's so easy to point a finger now, and you can't say, well, we had a legislature that couldn't get along. We couldn't get anything done. Yeah, you can get anything done you want. So you're going to live with the consequences of that.
Do you think, and I don't know, I'm just going by what I can see on TV. I've never been to California. Do you think the Hispanic population in California is helping swing the politics in that state?
I don't think that I don't think that they care outside of city centers. If you go down to places that are agriculture in nature, and if you take away the 5 cities of California, this is really a very rural state. You take away Oakland, you take away San Francisco, San Jose, LA, and San Diego, and you got a very rural state here with great distances between major cities. So when you get out to like Central Valley, where you have all the agricultural areas and something like 30% or 40% of the vegetables of the nation come out of that area, those people don't vote. They could care less about that politics. To them, it's all about getting a paycheck, and this frustrates people that attempt to organize those kind of workers in effective unions and things like that, because they don't go in for that. You'd be surprised how much the Hispanics just want to keep their head down, work, do their job, get their money, and just not rock the boat. So it's a little different when you get into the urban centers, especially when you periodically you'll have these initiatives in California like, well, we should have scholarships for illegals to go to college, because they can't afford to go to college. These dumb things about that rewarding law breaking and stuff. But Hispanics really are not that represented in the voting. Here, to the extent they just don't turn out in the numbers that the Asians and whites and even the blacks turn out.
I was just curious. I didn't know how heavily populated and heavily they were into all the stuff. Especially, I mean, we hear so much stuff about illegals voting and things like that, and I can see how it can happen. I didn't know if it was.
I live in a city, Santa Rosa, that's probably the largest per capita Mexican population in the state for a city of 200,000 people here, and we have all basically all white people in all positions of government, until you get down to like a local school district or something like that, where you'll start to see some Hispanic names on the ballot, because it's still a money issue to run for office. So a lot of times they just are told when they're growing up, just stay the hell out of it. Just get a job, keep your nose clean, and don't get involved in things of authority and office, running for office, and all those kind of things. So they're really not that politically involved in what goes on, at least up in my area. Now, if you go down to San Francisco, of course, you'll have a lot of militant activism there that's in the restaurants and high minimum wages and union organizations and things like that. But that's not representative of the state by a long shot.
Well, and that's overall too. Me and Blue Blue was looking some numbers up. I threw a number at him, and he fact checked me right quick. Not that he thought I was lying, because I was even questioning the number myself. But it's somewhere around 46% of the registered voters in America didn't vote this last election.
Yeah. So to me,
most people don't get involved.
Hillary failed to get the message out. And there were things after the fact. I mean, after the election, all the dirt comes out. all the people second guess the strategy, right? You hear an unnamed campaign advisor close to Hillary, they blamed, Bill Clinton begged Hillary to campaign in certain areas that she basically had written off and didn't even bother to make an appearance in. And that, people get kind of pissed off about that kind of stuff. It's one of the beauties of why the Electoral College is so good, because it keeps these politicians from focusing all of their efforts just on big cities. They've got to campaign across the whole nation. And Hillary failed in that regard. She really did fail in that regard.
Well, I think now my county I live in heavily. So what I hear is maybe biased, but I think it was basically even a lot of Democrats and liberals didn't like Hillary, even though they wanted to vote Democrat. They didn't like Hillary, and they just stayed at home.
You know why? Because Bernie Sanders carried a lot of their hearts with him when he got defeated. So a lot of people said, "Screw it." I didn't. If I wanted Hillary, I would have voted for her the first time around.
Mm-hmm. And then when Bernie backed Hillary in the back of her back, and it pissed them off even worse.
Now, if Hillary had asked Bernie to be a vice presidential, and if he had agreed, might have been a slightly different story. That's hindsight, but it might have had a little bit of a difference to it. He didn't do a lot to help her campaign. Let's be real.
No, he didn't. I'm just saying, but he did back her after the primaries were over, and told his people to support the Democratic nominee and stuff. And they were like, "Fuck you."
Yeah, fuck you. You go do it.
What it was, a lot of people didn't like Hillary. They didn't really like Trump. So they just stayed at home, which is, I don't suggest anybody doing that, because you still got your local elections, your state offices.
Arizona Patriot says those Bernie voters may have supported her until the Democratic National Committee leaks happened. Mm-hmm. Once they found out how their entire party had schemed against them, she was done. I kind of agree. You find out what you're really worth when the dirt comes out. So
I agree. What you guys are talking about, just in the state of Vermont, there were 18,000 write-ins for Bernie Sanders. That's a pretty good chunk.
80,000.
There were a lot of pissed off people that just didn't like her, didn't like the way she did business. I think she had a difficult time rallying young people to come out. I don't think that the blacks, you maybe had the hardcore, what I call the marching blacks, the ones that had worked very hard for Obama, especially in 2000. I don't think that they felt like it did any good. I don't think they felt like anything really changed. So Hillary's not the answer. Not that they would vote pro-Trump, but what's the point of 4 more years of Obama, effectively?
Well, not always, but usually after, well, at least in my lifetime, not every time, but you almost see a pattern where you'll have a Republican for 8 years, and then it's like everybody gets tired of that. It's like, this ain't working. And then you'll have that for 8 years, and then they say, this shit ain't working. Let's try the other party. It kind of flip-flops back and forth almost every time. Not every time, but most of the time.
Yeah, and I just think that the problems that confront this country remain. We can enjoy that post-election euphoria, but we still need to tackle this $20 trillion debt. We still need to tackle getting our borders under control, all kinds of things, ironing out gun rights and drug laws that are not uniform across the nation. Still a lot of issues.
The immigration may be one of the biggest things that drove people to vote for Trump. Not necessarily the southern border, but just the immigrants whatsoever, but especially after these past few years with the terrorist attacks we've had on U.S. soil, and then bringing in all the uh, Arabic people, I think a lot of people, that might have been their only issue they was voting for.
Well,
And,
what
of
do you
course
think
that makes me racist, but, fuck y'all.
that's a Brexit roll-off, right?
Yep. Yeah, the whole world. Well, a lot of the world is going toward that nationalistic. Hey, wait a minute. We can't just be one big happy family. Well, there's
Yeah,
differences between our countries. There's nothing wrong with that.
yeah, we lose our values. What are the core values of America? If you ask a young person, they don't, what the hell does that mean? And if you get far enough afield and you just have an unequal application of laws and things, you have a lack of respect for government and what it's supposed to be all about.
But I know a lot of people that was a big issue for them. I mean, and I've even heard people in interviews, and I'm talking like national level stuff, that even I'm talking about like Muslims being interviewed. I've seen several interviews with Muslims, and we need to vet these people. We need to slow this down. We just can't open the gates and let these people in. And they were like, that's why I came here, to get away from those damn crazy people over there. And they're like, well, you're not offended? And they're like, no. You see what's going on over there?
Yeah.
So that says a lot. But we're racist, even though that tells you how fucking ignorant they are, because that's a religion. It's not a fucking race if somebody's a Muslim.
Yeah, so it's going to be a difficult issue because people are having a certain expectation now that voted for Trump. So it's going to be interesting to see how you sort of grease the track to get this type of getting people either compliant legally with immigration or attempting to deport people. So some segments will be easy. I mean, we got these ridiculous sanctuary cities like San Francisco and all this kind of stuff. I mean, how does that stand in a federal sense? I mean, it's just, this is the stuff that drives me crazy. This different set of laws for a different geographic or socioeconomic group.
And not everybody's involved at all. Not at all, but overall, Americans they don't really care. They're just so apathetic about politics. It's like they do kind of pay attention a little bit. They'll watch the news or something. Some people may even go through trouble of watching 60 Minutes or something like that. But then that's the only information they have. They never do any actual research. And I was guilty of it too, to a certain extent, I never got into the other politics. The only politics I really got into, as far as really paying attention to when I was younger, laws and stuff. But that's when Waco happened, Ruby Ridge, the Brady Bill. So that was an eye-opening experience, how the government goes about manipulating data and facts and figures and what their agenda is and stuff like that. But I didn't really pay attention to anything else. That was it. So it's only been in the past, 8 and 10 years that I've started looking into everything. And then that pisses you off for a little while. You lose all your friends because you're pissed off and trying to tell them about this shit and they don't want to hear it. You're fucking right. He's fucking crazy. You need to stay away from him.
I think Jay Johns has a good point. You always have this kind of honeymoon period. I mean, the press has been chastised for being off the mark and everything. So they'll kind of hold their tongues for a bit. They're kind of trying to get the egg off their face in this election. So there'll definitely be some honeymoon time. So we'll see what happens.
Yep, Conda's right. See, I got all of YouTube now. You know, well, not all of YouTube, but I got a big YouTube friends list now. I got a lot of friends, like-minded individuals.
Yeah, well, it's going to be an interesting inauguration speech. See what
Yeah, it's already came out.
I wouldn't mind a tax cut.
Yeah, they've already come out saying, I mean, they're already saying that it's going to be the biggest protest, whatever. They plan on doing this big protest at the inauguration, but they may try, but I don't think DC is going to allow it.
Well, you got to remember back in history when Lincoln came into Washington under armed guard and was surrounded in his inaugural speech by Union troops posted everywhere around the where the venue was. And when FDR came to take office, they were so worried about a revolution because depression was so bad at that point that they feared there might be riots and assassinations and stuff. So there's, they're always worried about the potential of protest.
Yeah, well, they're flat out advertising it, but like I said, I got a feeling the crowd will be pushed back, and what you see in front of, like, which is probably that way anyway, don't get me wrong, the people you see right, Trump and Obama and all that, that'll be special guests. You know what I'm saying? The actual public was probably going to be way back.
Well, one of the advantages we have between now and, say, 1933 was at that time, until they passed the amendment, you got elected in November, but you didn't take office till March. And there was this ridiculously long, all in November, December, January, February. So there's a 4-month, effectively a third of the year before you took office. And like I say, in 32, 33, things were so bad and the country was so demoralized and people were getting so pissed off. The veterans wanted their bonuses paid out from World War I, and that all that stuff was coming down the pike. They actually had they had machine guns mounted all around the inaugural sites. Kind of weird with General Douglas MacArthur in charge. So bring it on.
Yeah. Yeah, anyway. Yeah, there's a lot of talk with assassination, but yeah, I kind of put it out there in the comment section. These people we see protesting and raising hell, they're very violent. Very violent. But I would say not gun owners.
I would say generally they don't contribute to society either.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Otherwise, how are they protesting for a week? Because they ain't got a freaking job. They're not contributing to society. Their parents might be paying for a college education, but that's about the only thing commerce they got going around in their Starbucks coffee.
Some of them admitted to being on Soros's payroll.
Yeah, that's something that has surprised me at work. I've had at least 2 people that I would never have thought, and I don't know, I don't watch regular news, and maybe they're watching, maybe Rush Limbaugh or somebody like that on talk radio. There's probably a lot of people who listen to talk radio around here. Maybe that's where they heard it, but I had 2 different people that I would have never thought would known that George Soros was paying salaries, or his company or whatever, for people to protest, and I knew about the buses. And I was like, wow, because I guarantee you CNN wasn't talking about that shit.
Makes me sick.
They should be talking about it, but maybe they are, but I hadn't seen anybody share any clips with them talking about it. Might see it on RT, or like I said, your conservative radio broadcast.
I just think Trump really has to focus now and really have a game plan when he comes in, because he's won now. Now the now the governing begins, you know. So I hope he gets an agenda that people can back and keep supporting. You know, he has to come out a winner. You have to come out a winner right off the bat.
And I think he'll surround himself with. I think it's going to be a mix, and that's what I've seen so far. He's going to pick some people, which I've already seen the headlines and stuff. Oh, it's just the same old thing. He's selling out. No. I think he's actually going to. He's going to put some people that maybe that I wouldn't like, that I don't agree with. He'll have a mix of those and some outsiders to have a good mix to get all sides, but it'll actually help bring together the Republican Party to pick some of the ones that we may not like as more of a libertarian type person, a more freedom type person, whatever. So I think he'll put together a mix, and I think it'll be okay. Yeah, like I said, previous, there's one, keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have some people around that know how to deal with the legislature and know how to get a bill introduced and who to talk to. Some useful. That's where Mike Pence comes in real handy.
Yeah, no kidding, Combs. That'd been nasty. Yeah, I think we dodged a bullet with Hillary. That's just it, period. If you hadn't been prepping, you'd been sorry if she'd have won, I think. I really think we'd have been in. And the economy still may crash and all that, but I think we held off some stuff like World War III. It still could happen, but she was like dead nuts going for World War III with Russia.
Yeah, I kind of like to have a president that will actually talk to leaders. Try to make things better.
Exactly. Hell, I think we ought to get with Russia, and if we really want ISIS gone, we need to be fighting with Russia. Side, and I'll take this side over here, and we'll wipe these son of a bitches out. But that ain't what we're doing. But I think that'll change, and I hope it does. I think it's going to be good for the country, other than these whiny ass little bitches in the streets right now. But eventually, that's going to. Well, I say that, I don't know. Eventually, I think it's going to die down, but I don't know how long it's going to be before it does. But if they all getting paychecks, hell, they ain't going no damn where. Yep, first fire. If we stop funding them, we could beat them a lot quicker. I agree.
Yeah, you got to get. I agree. You got to get some good people around you.
Yeah, that's the thing that I didn't. Well, I say I didn't understand, but I actually heard that from some people, or just to say watching shows and chats and stuff. And they're like, well, he's not experienced, not experienced. Well, hell no, no president's elected that has experience being the freaking president of the United States. Even Barack Obama, his first senator term, he had just got elected. I don't know, what was he, 1 or 2 years in? Something like that. He wasn't even, he might have been in some local politics before that. But it wasn't like he was some senator for years and years and had all this political experience,
He was a block organizer.
I figured something local,
Yeah, the local block organizer.
Yeah. So
no special training to be president.
He just, and I think he's good. He's a good businessman, and you surround yourself with good people. If they made me plant manager at the plant I work at now, even though I've worked in a plant 15, 16 years, I've never been plant manager, but I bet I could be a pretty good one because I would surround myself with smart son of a bitches that know their job. My production manager, my salesman, I would pick the top guys and let them make me look good. Because I've seen it when people do it the other way. I've seen that a lot where I've seen people, say a manager or something, he'll pick people that are damn near idiots, almost like somebody you could blame the problem on when they don't go well, and you're going to make all the decisions. That fails every damn time.
Yeah, that doesn't matter what job you're in. Sometimes just because you have the most seniority doesn't mean that you deserve the job.
No.
You could be the laziest, dumbest son of a bitch, and just because you've been there for 20 years, not always means you deserve it.
Yeah, well, and it's an ego thing sometimes. I've seen this where people will pick people that's really not qualified for the job just so they can be the hero because they'll have the answer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be the hero. I'm going to have the answer because these guys don't know as much as me. That's the wrong way to lead. You need your top guys, your supervisors, your managers under you, generals, platoon leaders. I don't care what. You pick the very best for that job, and then let them do their job and listen to them.
It doesn't matter if it's your actual business. The way I've always looked at it, and I don't care what job you're in, the way that I would look at it is I want to run the plant, the police department, whatever job I'm in. I want to run it like it's my business. You know what I mean? It's if you're running it and you drop over, you want to have 3 other people that can slide right into that knows what the hell's going on and can keep it operational until your position's filled, and then they filter it back down through. But like we were just saying, with just because somebody has seniority doesn't always make them the best candidate. And that, man, does that irritate the hell out of me. Because, well, never mind, I'm not going to say it.
Well, I asked a couple of people at work that were going out on some protest over the weekend. I said, what exactly are you protesting? And they looked at me with a dumb look on their face. And, I guess that Trump got elected president of the United States. And I said, did you hear anything about voting irregularities? No, I didn't hear anything about people weren't allowed to vote. People were disenfranchised. So what exactly are you protesting? The will of the people? No, that the Electoral College should be done away with. I said, if you didn't have the Electoral College, Abraham Lincoln would have never become president of the United States, right? I mean, he only had 40% of the vote when he was elected. I mean, it's like you got to be careful what you wish for. In life. So, at the end of the day, fuck you, that kind of just protesting, right? I mean, it's just this need to kind of belong and kind of have your voice heard, I guess, to blow off steam, I hope. So, but they didn't even know what the hell they're protesting. There were no irregularities. I didn't hear anybody bitching about they couldn't vote. Yeah. I only heard Democrats bitching that people didn't come out to vote that came out to vote 4 years ago and 8 years ago.
The only reason we're having this issue going on right now in these colleges and these protests that are outside of the colleges with these other individuals, I don't know, maybe I'm stepping out on a limb here. My personal opinion is it's the social media. We're going to hold a protest here. We're going to hold a protest here. We don't know what the hell we're protesting about, but come out and support our protest.
I mean, 200 kids from our high school, all the high schools walked out yesterday, right? 200 from Santa Rosa High School, all other high schools in the county. For what? Great chance to get out of school because you had a what do they call that when you have a group of people that just show up, a flash thing on social media says everybody walk out now and they all just leave. Flash mob.
Flash mobs, yeah.
All the kids should have gotten detention. It's exactly right, but they were standing up for principles that they did not understand.
If you're holding a flash mob because a kid in your class is continually getting bullied and the administration is not doing anything about it, that's great. But whenever you're doing this type of shit, if you were to ask the questions, why are you doing this? Okay, because you don't agree that Trump's president. Why don't you agree that Trump is the president-elect? Well, I don't know. Well, what do you mean you don't know? Well, I saw on Facebook, I saw on Twitter, I saw on Instagram that he's doing this and he's doing that. Well, do you know that that's what he's doing or not? You know, what if I were to tell you that that's completely true? Would that, or that that's completely false, what you're reading on social media? Would that change your mind about going out and doing this, you know, this flash mob, this protest, this whatever? 9 times out of 10, they would, I'm just guessing, but I think it's a great guess, that they would just continue doing what they were going to do because it gets them out of school and that's all they care about.
Yeah, it gets you out of school. The other thing we have to recognize too is there was a tremendous shockwave that went through the Democratic Party. I mean, our local rag here in the county, our local liberal once a week rag, last Wednesday was published, and they already pre-put articles having interviews with certain key liberals in the county, what a Hillary presidency was going to mean for the county. And I'm reading this thing and I thought, man, this is as good as Dewey defeats Truman in 1948, right? They already pre-published this paper and had anointed her the queen. So you know that the shockwaves that ripped through the Democrat Party were severe. I mean, it was like a 8.0 earthquake that went through. So these people are dealing with being stunned. I mean, you saw people at the Democrat National headquarters and in New York City at the hotel waiting to have a victory party that turned into, you know, a wake basically because shock came in. You guys may not have been shocked, but I was certainly shocked by the outcome there. Them to a much greater extent because they were so vested in it. So for them to protest almost kind of seems to make sense to me that they're so friggin' hurt they're so friggin' hurt that this country could have done what it did, that they're just still feeling those shockwaves.
And something else me and Blue was looking at, and was talking about before I went live, was Trump may end up getting a popular vote. All the votes ain't counted and done yet. And he wins a popular vote, then what are they going to say?
Well, they couldn't say anything anyway because we've had presidents that, you know, I did an essay last week on my channel on Rosie Murphy my channel that Warren G. Harding was elected in 1920 by the largest plurality in the history of the United States, in the history of elections, 60.4%. He ended up being the most corrupt administration in history. Popular vote never determines how things are going to turn out in the end, no more than it determined that Abraham Lincoln would go down as the greatest president of the United States. It's like, you elect somebody, you get behind them, and you hope that they do the job, because time will tell on them. Doesn't matter what they did going in; it's what they're gonna say when it's all said and done.
Well, most of these, I'd say probably almost every damn one of these people that's protesting right now, of course, don't know how our government works. Don't even know that we're a republic. Democracy. This is not a democracy. This is a republic. Your state, local elections, your senators, state senators, on the federal level, whatever, that's more of a democratic vote. That's a majority win vote. Then they represent you and vote for you for the president. There's where your republic comes in.
I think that their anger should be directed towards their own party. And, revisiting, where did we go wrong? How could we have been so off the mark? How did our polling go? How come the polling was wrong? You're protesting the wrong thing. You're just protesting the air. You might as well just be protesting that the air is clear. I mean, it makes no sense at all to just blow off steam because there were no irregularities. There were no hanging chads. There were nothing that prevented people. We had the people turned out, people that wanted to vote, voted. And that's the way it is. And like I said, they're directing their energies the wrong way. And if anything, they're going to more polarize people to think to themselves, wow, we really did make the right choice by getting somebody like Trump in there, because this is just these knuckleheads that need to go get a job and need to be productive people, because they got way too much fucking time on their hands to spend on the streets. Same thing I said during that Occupy Wall Street, Occupy Oakland, all those ridiculous love fests in 2010 and 2011. This is the same shit now. Overfed kids with nothing to do except get their head filled by trash by overpaid tenured college professors with an agenda.
Yeah, I mean, they literally want socialism, period. Just flat out socialism. We should just tax everybody so I don't have to work. Or I should just get my degree. I've even seen the kids do, like, basically went to the college, I forget which college it was, were demanding that the college give them all passing grades, even if they don't go to class, even if they don't do exams, because they're too busy literally out being a social justice warrior. We can't do all these protests and study, so you should just pass us.
Yeah, so what kind of employees do you think they make for the future, huh?
Exactly.
Nobody can tell you what to do, right? Right? And you can't have a boss.
And, you know, everybody else we should just pay for their college education, pay for them to be on food stamps, welfare, and all that when they can't find a job because they got a degree that, you know, damn thing. There's no way in hell a college degree means shit anymore. I mean, I know there's kids that go out there and they're serious about it, not dumbing down the college education for doctors and shit that much, but these general BS degrees and shit like that, evidently, if you can, I don't even know if you had to tie your shoe, and you'd probably get a degree.
Well, I'm just saying, yeah, well, you find out that degrees just don't carry the weight when you go to get a job, and it's the reason they call it things like hard sciences and stuff like that is because you have to work your ass off to be a electrical engineer or a computer scientist or a physician. Yeah, it requires a lot of dedication and very little time to be out on the streets protesting.
Yeah, they can't dumb those, hopefully, those fields down, because the next engineer that's working on the next bridge that I drive over, I hope they know what the hell they're doing. You know.
Well, to me, there's some satisfaction in the fact that those that can do and those that won't don't. I mean, it's like the people that have the ability to keep their head down and their nose to the grindstone and make it into medical school or make it as an electrical engineer and actually are productive are the people that have no interest. They're the ones that end up paying the taxes and have more of a proportional say in what goes on in this country. And I think there's some justice in that.
Yeah, there's a lot of people talking about skilled trades. I agree. I'm a skilled trade worker. You're looking at one right here. I got a skilled trade. I'll never be rich, but for the most part, I'll always have a job, and I make pretty damn good money from a redneck from Marietta, South Carolina. Not that y'all know where that's at, but Greenville, South Carolina. I do pretty good. But at the same time, now, don't get me wrong, just because I got a job in that field in maintenance technician, maintenance technician, everybody, just because I got that title ain't why I make what I make. It's because I do have a lot of education in that field, you know, refrigeration, you name it, plumbing, electrical school, electronics school. Hydraulics. I've done a lot of schooling and on-the-job training, and my military background plays into what I do, and I'm fucking good at it. So,
you got to be careful with infrastructure because Jay John says if there's a lot of money spent on infrastructure, there should be a boom in skilled labor demand. one of the problems with infrastructures, of course, is stimulative activity, but it's based off of what? It's not based off of having a surplus of money in your state, local, or federal government that, oh well, we can develop the nation some more now, and let's have better highways. It's built on more deficit type of spending. So we got to be kind of careful in a way that we just, to make ourselves prosperous, we don't put ourselves in the poorhouse. You know what I'm saying? We have to concentrate on having good private sector jobs to support this thing, and do the things that will encourage the private sector to come back from overseas with maybe greenfield initiatives for manufacturing, and you know, some tax variances on local levels to bring back these things, and have it on a national basis instead of having these states compete against each other for giving away the farm to try to get the odd factory put up.
Yeah. A lot of people talking about trades out there. I'm sure there's a lot of tradesmen out there in different things. Yeah, welders. There comes big time in radios and technology and all that's skilled trades. And skilled trades are dying out.
You know, the Japanese have had stimulus program after stimulus program after stimulus program. You just cannot spend your way to prosperity.
Oh no. But skilled trades play in part in industry.
They'll follow this. The salaries of the skilled trades will be at such a level they'll attract overflow of people to. Well, you don't have the math. Well, I better get my ass in school and learn how to add and do a little basic math. You know, you'll start to incentivize the system to get people moving. I mean, the ridiculous thing in my time was growing up is, and I went to an engineering high school. We had sheet metal shop, we had wood shop, we had engine shop, you know, turning down stuff on metal lathes and things. I mean, we had all the hot metal shop, forgings and castings and all that stuff. You came out of there, even with a college prep education, you came out of there knowing good basic skills of industry and trade. But then that whole mantra came in the 1970s that, oh, you know, you need to go to college. Everybody's going to have a white collar job, and it's ridiculous. And then we see where that's gotten us today. We've hollowed out where we don't have that section of mid-level jobs and stuff. Jay John says, Rosie, are the Japanese failing because they no longer manufacture? They're failing because they cannot compete with their land values. The cost of doing business is such that they, even with a tremendous amount of robotics thrown in and reduction of labor costs, they just cannot compete with Vietnam and India and China when it comes to producing things, and even the United States to a big extent now. We're not that far away from coming back to a pretty good manufacturing, a reversal of, you know, factories coming back here because of quality of life and cost structures. Our land is still very cheap here. If our politicians get their heads out of their asses with taxation and stuff, you could have a lot of things coming here.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, I mean, hopefully Trump will put us in, and not him totally by himself. I don't know, he ain't freaking Superman and nothing like that, but it's a whole different mindset that's headed into Washington right now. Not all of them, but, you know, at least the leadership. Hopefully it can get started on the right direction. And that's what I was preaching back when Ron Paul was running, you know. And it's not that he was going to save the world in a year or two. No, it's just hopefully he can get it pointed in the right direction, you know, get people saying, you know what, this is working. A few more jobs available, you know.
Some people say fuck China, but China is another country in a long line through history that's just economically been in a position to better themselves. What we actually did was fuck ourselves in this country with overzealous regulation of EPA and OSHAs and all these regulations that have basically tried to put everybody into this soft feathered cocoon instead of being out in the real world of competition and things, and taxation and local taxes and stuff, and treating business as if it's the enemy. This is the problem with these protesters on the street. Consider business the enemy. They don't consider business the foundation of prosperity. They consider business the enemy of prosperity. Until that changes, until that reverses and swings around, we're screwed. But we can do that. We can reverse that by changing the taxes, by making ourselves friendly to producing things instead of unfriendly, and putting more land aside for parks and like out here, they just put stuff into a land trust of land that nobody will ever visit or use. And I mean, it's just stupid shit, because we've had environmentalists hold sway and people that believe that business is the enemy. It's amazing we were able to produce an Apple or a Google in this state. So
yeah. Yeah, they just don't get it whatsoever. Yeah, if the corporations and businesses are the enemy, they think you can need is a service industry. They better buy them a damn mule and some, because there ain't gonna be no jobs. You better grow you some freaking food. Yeah. Anyway, Blue, you got to cut out, dude.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was whooped whenever I first came in here. I didn't even realize. Like I told TR, I got the invite, and I'm like, what the hell is TR doing a chat for tonight? I am like off on a different zone, and I've been that way for the last couple days. But we have another big battle tomorrow night, Wednesday, trying to save the jobs of seven officers. So one of those deals where I want to make sure I'm well rested, because I got to get up, go to work, and then hit that meeting tomorrow night. So well, I mean, it went damn well, and I know I kind of gave a little bit of an update, but basically we had an outpouring from the community that told the elected officials, don't pass this budget for the police cuts, and it didn't even go to a vote. So there was a there was a motion to accept. There was no second, so the motion became dead, and it was a pretty awesome feeling, sitting there and having a room of about 130 people just erupt whenever that vote never went through. But we got to go back to battle tomorrow, so I got to hit the social media a little bit before I go to bed to make sure we get the turnout. I got to make a couple calls, a couple text messages, and then I'm to bed, and then start it all tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be about another 16-hour day, so I am whooped. So,
all right, Blue, take it easy. Good luck.
Yeah. Can you say what county it was right quick, if that's okay?
The county that I'm in?
Yeah.
Northwestern Pennsylvania.
Okay, there you go. That's what I figured, but somebody asked, and that's why I asked.
That's all right. Yeah, it's just one of those deals where I've never been too outgoing with where my location is. It's not that I'm that worried about it. It's just that if I happen to say something on one of these chats, I don't want one of these little trolls to run back and say, "Oh, watch this chat at hour 1, 3 minutes in. He calls you a fucking idiot." It's like, yeah, it's not worth it.
Yeah, I got you. That's kind of what I figured, but just so, yeah, anyway. But yeah, go ahead, man. Get some rest and good luck.
All right, guys. Have a good night.
And for those that I think Tom's asked, because Blue was playing with the safety pin, literally you could say a diaper pin. These little social justice warriors, that's became their new little medal. Freaking safety pin on, and that means they need their safe space, or they're behind their safe space.
Well, yeah, I think I'll wear one of them. But if you don't mind, TR, I want to drill down on this side chat, because we're starting to get into talk over there about competition and what the easy solution is, say you put up barriers to trade, and you end up like the 1930s with these horrible trade wars of competing tariffs. You know, you charged our imports with this, now it's tit for tat. We're going to put this on, and trade came to a virtual halt in the 1930s as a result. The only way to do it is the tough way, that you go toe to toe and you face the realities that you're not competitive. Because by recognizing that you're not competitive, you're automatically going to start doing the things that force you to be competitive over the long term. If you have two bodies of water and one of them is much higher than the other, and the other starts to rise, well, you can't put a lock on those two levels. The world levels off economically between different countries. So now China has the upper hand. Japan lost the upper hand. Well, the United States manufacturing gets pushed down to such a point that with a few conditions changed and a few tax changes and stuff like that, all of a sudden America becomes very attractive because of political stability and other things, and a fairly decent untapped labor force. All of a sudden it starts to become a good place to manufacture. But you can't legislate that. You can't force that. You know, that's the beauty of a free market. If you're an American and you believe in our nation and you believe in free markets and that spirit of competition, if we had put up trade barriers against Japanese cars and stuff in the 1970s, we would have never gone through the conniptions that made our car industry strengthen again and start producing good quality and world-class vehicles. If we had put up the barriers, there never would have been incentive, and our cars would have stopped keeping up with engineering and technological things. It would have just been a mode of transportation. So I just think that competition is always good. And if they want to slap up barriers and stuff, eventually it's going to hurt them, that they're going to be so uncompetitive that it leaves those areas. So put yourself out there raw and face the music, and do the things, the economy forces you to change things to make things better.
Well, now this is just, I was in I was a car mechanic when I first started out. You know, when I moved away from home and started my life, I was a car mechanic. So I saw, you know, went to school for that and all that. And this was in the mid 80s. And so I was working in independent garages and stuff. And so you saw the cars from the late 70s and the early 80s, but especially the early 80s. American cars overall were shit. I mean, they were shit. And the imports, even though they were a little bit rinky-dink too, they were more reliable, had better gas mileage, and they didn't break down as much. And that's when I mean, it was before that, I know, but I would say in the 80s into the 90s is when your Japanese really did good. And of course, then now we got Korean cars doing really good too. But I think American kind of forced their hand, I mean, kind of made their own destiny, that they had so much competition because they was putting out some shit.
Yeah,
I mean, some crappy cars.
If there had been barriers up, there never would have been an incentive to improve the quality. So competition worked in a major way. Now our car companies are turning a profit, and they can hold their own in a competitive vehicle environment. I mean, hell, we even got Tesla producing electric cars in this nation, and driverless vehicles and things now. Now, somebody said, what about China, and why are they allowed to buy media and all that kind of stuff? The reality is, what are you going to do if you're China and you have $150 billion to $300 billion trade surplus worldwide a year? That means 300 billion more is coming in than's gone out. That money's got to go somewhere. And there's only a limit to how fast the domestic economy can absorb that kind of capital coming in. So, of course, like the Japanese did with buying golf courses and trophy hotels in the 1980s and things, the Chinese are a little smarter. They look around for strategic investments that they can make. And much to the United States is good, much to the benefit of this country, we have an open country where people can bring in their money and overpay for assets and stuff. That's the beauty of a free market, is at all points you expose yourself. Now, Linda said, what about things like dumping and stuff like that? Dumping becomes its own enemy in the end too, because there's no need to try to keep quality up of materials and things like that if you're just getting a free ride in a market. All those things carry the seeds of their own destruction, in my opinion.
Yeah, but I agree with you. A competitive market, I mean, it forces change. I mean, I work in industry to a degree. I mean, we could be, we are competing with, overseas companies. Maybe we got a little bit of leeway, a little bit of protection just because of shipping costs. When you're talking about this little plastic, I mean, the company I work at, we might just be making this little plastic lid right here.
Right.
That or from China or something, and it be profitable. I ain't saying they can't do it, but if we can make it cost effective here enough, we can. We don't have to compete with them.
It's to the point now where there's actually life being breathed back into our steel industry now. United States Steel and some of these countries have managed by the skin of their, just hanging on by the skin of their teeth to survive all this onslaught of foreign competition. And now they're in a position where they're starting to pick up orders internationally and other things. Now we got the dollar and things like that strengthening. But in my opinion, the best thing that Trump could do is do things to enhance the competitive stature of the United States by taking a hard look at some of these overzealous regulations and laws that make it such a pain in the ass to deal on a local and state level to get anything done. I mean, if you come into California and you come into this Bay Area and say, I'd like to put up a manufacturing plant, it's like the zoning board falls backwards in their chairs, almost having heart failure. Because all they can think of is a smokestack just pouring out the smoke or something like that. So we really need to make sure that, to me, that's the best thing that Trump could do is to get us in a position where we're more competitive by getting government off people's backs.
Yeah, and he's talked about that. And him as a big construction guru guy, he should know it firsthand, what loops you got to go through, who you got to pay off. And he said that from the get-go. He's like, I know how the system works. I know how you got to grease people's wheels and jump through hoops and shake hands and be friends and blah, blah, blah. Business. So I think he's got a good base to start with. I ain't saying he can get a lot done, but he can definitely get us in the right direction.
Well, Dirt Road says we can't make shit close as cheap as and foreign non-EPA regulated polluted countries like Asia. But see, this is just the point I'm making, Dirt Road. At what point do you say in that country that things are so bad and the quality of life is so bad that you're wearing a respirator mask to walk around the streets? The pressure on government to improve the quality of life becomes fierce. Remember in the 1960s when the Cuyahoga River caught fire in this country, or you could take the Hooker Chemical Company could just take a backhoe and just dig out a huge trench in near Buffalo and just bury thousands of barrels of toxic waste that resulted in birth defects and other things, because we didn't have any worries at that time about fouling our environment and pouring shit into the rivers and stuff. Now China is coming to that same point where their quality of life is so bad that they now have to make the investments into improving that quality of life. And yes, the commie governments do give a shit, because might as well be. I spent 5 years in China, and China is much more much more capitalist than this country, and I hate to say that. The amount of communism that you will experience in China is virtually zero these days. You have much more pressure for socialism and other things in this country than you would ever see in China, and that's the reality of it. That Communist Party just lives in a small little world. So he said, why did they live in smog? Why did we live in pollution for 50, 60 years before we did anything about it? Because it didn't affect people. Now when kids in China start showing up with birth defects and things like that, then it becomes a real issue. And that's when you move on it. But it has to be in your self-interest. It can't be pushed on from the outside. So let it rip. If you want to shit in your country, then you'll pay the consequences for that. Now they look at places like the United States. Well, what a great place to manufacture. The air is clean. There's cheap land. There's plenty of labor around that's competitive. Now, not everybody works in a factory in Asia. There's some very well-paid managers and things that make things expensive. Yeah, China has big social problems. Exactly. We belched black smoke too, first fire for 100 years in this country.
Yeah. Yeah, but with all that being said, I mean, we want it clean and nice and all that, but there was just mainly talking about the regulations and stuff. And I'm not talking about anything specific, but just there is too much regulation and other crap that keep businesses from being here, keep corporations, it makes corporations move their headquarters out of the country so they don't have to pay frickin' taxes or as much taxes. There's a lot of things that can be done to bring more manufacturing back here.
Of course, yeah. And the best thing is just competition eventually reaches a point where people weigh out all the factors of land acquisition costs, of labor, of transportation systems, and they decide that a place like Tennessee is a great place to build a factory. And states like California eventually get shut out of those new opportunities, and then the pressure builds on them to change their ways. It's all those natural subtle forces of a free economy that actually help make stuff better.
Yeah, the company I work for, they're expanding, and we're trying to get more business at the little company, at the little bitty division I work at. It's not even a division, this is the plant. But we just got bought out. The corporation I work for just got bought out for the sum of $16 billion. So now we're a part of this other huger company, and they're like our plant. We've turned it around, cleaned it up, straightened it up a little bit, putting out a little bit better quality product. And so they're saying, okay, you're doing good. We're going to invest millions into your plant. So we're looking at new machinery, new robots, expanding the plant. I mean, it can be done in America, but it could be done easier and maybe even more enticing if some things were changed the way America has just gone crazy with putting a chokehold on corporations and businesses.
Well, it's just you reach the point where you've run out of places that you can exploit for cheap labor, and people are starting to earn decent salaries in those countries and in those areas. It makes it expensive. I mean, can you imagine acquiring land in China now? It's getting very expensive in some manufacturing compared to buying up land in the United States for development. It's ridiculously expensive.
That's probably another reason a lot of manufacturers here in the last decade or so have started moving south.
Yeah.
Your Mississippi, South Carolina, Kentucky, and maybe not Kentucky. I don't know, maybe Kentucky. But anyway.
Yeah, with free labor markets, we're free flow of labor and all that. Yeah.
I heard Clinton say something about how right to work states was just so wrong and bad for America. And I was like, what?
It's
Because
just
South Carolina's a right to work
it's
state.
just that ridiculous populism that appeals to people in their base nature that let's just shut everybody else out and we'll be okay. No, we won't be, because eventually the fall will be harder and longer if you don't face up to the realities of the world. If you try to bury your head in the sand and build a wall around you, you're going to be screwed.
Yeah,
Competition builds success.
yeah. Like I said, I mean, the South, low wages, but we have low cost of living, compared to up north. And that's why a lot of manufacturing comes. That's why BMW is here. BMW's in South Carolina. Michelin, they got, unless they've grown, last time I heard, they got 5 manufacturing facilities in the United States. 4 of them are in South Carolina.
Yeah, and I suspect there'll be more manufacturing flow going into that area. Yeah, heating costs is a reason, but also land acquisition and not having unions and things like that.
Yeah. Well, the plant I work at, we're right beside the interstate. Now, I'm not saying this is unique, but they found a spot of property that was, because it was built in the early 80s, different company owned it then. Nothing around it but farmland. But it was close to the interstate, so supplies and stuff like that's easy, convenient. But it's still in the woods, kind of. I mean, when I was working night shift, well, hell, just the other day, I had to stop in the drive to let 3 deer get out of my way so I could get out of the damn parking lot. I mean, we're still in the woods. That property wasn't that damn much money compared to somewhere up north or whatever.
That's what I'm saying. You just don't realize how big this country is till you fly over it, how much land there is and how open it is between. You get a sense we're crowded, but this place is like heaven as far as open spaces and land, and it's unbelievable. The potentials of this nation.
Yeah. Well, like you was talking about California, I'm sure it's mostly rural. It's not. It is. That's a big freaking state. There's no way it's not rural.
Yeah, I think like 95% of it's rural. I mean, you go outside 5 miles outside of any city, and you're out in the countryside. It's not like the corridor from Boston to Richmond, Virginia. There's just one giant city going down the East Coast. I mean, there's a ton of room out here. It's just that they happen to develop the things like entertainment and high tech because of places like Stanford and Caltech down in LA and USC and UC Berkeley. It just became a center of technology and stuff. That's what gave them their edge. People that spilled out of the colleges here and then decided to try their hand at building their businesses. Good timing and stuff. So, but when it came to manufacturing, you see the Tesla went over to Nevada to build their big battery. Their huge lithium ion battery manufacturing center there.
Yeah, the potential's there. We've run off a lot of manufacturing in America, and I agree with you, Rosie. I think there's a chance to bring a lot of it back. We've pretty much run it off, but maybe we can get it headed in the right direction.
Keep your feet to the competitive fire.
I'm still a little bit worried about the economy with the debt and everything else going on in the world, but who knows? Maybe it'll keep going.
Yeah,
I mean, you hope for the best.
I say be hopeful about that kind of thing. But the reality is the problems that were there last Monday are still there pre-election are still here today. I mean, I see what you see, that debt clock just spinning and just flying upward day after day after day. And that debt clock doesn't even tell the whole story of secondary and tertiary obligations that have to be funded down the road. So it's not, you have to unwind that the way it was built over time. There's no quick solution. And the way you start doing it is you spend less than you're taking in, and you pay that down. But then that goes in the face of people that want infrastructure spending. And so you're in this catch-22 kind of situation. And that's the ugly realities of it. So maybe a tax cut will be the thing to stimulate. You already see the wealth effect in the stock market starting to occur now, with probably $500 billion of wealth created since the election here with the run-up. So
yeah, that's something I meant to ask you earlier when we was talking about the stock market. Is it hit an all-time high, or has it hit? Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I didn't think it. I know it. I was positive it never hit 19,000.
S&P is close to it. So, and the NASDAQ's getting close to it. So, yeah, just like Jay John says, you're going to have an interest rate increase scenario that's going to create a debt crisis. Yeah, eventually it will, especially if all this funny money comes home to roost here, and all of a sudden we get some inflationary surge with wage inflation and everything else, and then trying to service that debt is going to kill us. That's exactly right. You'll see the national budget 40-50% consumed, which is paying debt service on the national debt. Then you'll see your services rationed. I'll tell you that. That's when you're glad you're a prepper.
Yeah, prepping is, if nothing else, the mindset has enabled me to cut my cost of living down tremendously. Just cutting down on crap I didn't need, I wasn't really using. The full cable package, full this, full that. Got all that shit out, and then just got down to basics. And hell, with the internet today, there's really nothing I can't see or watch or do anyway. So
yeah, Stewart Design says, why was the peso affected harshly with the election? It dropped to 21 pesos to the dollar. I think the feeling was that there would be less people to repatriate money back to taking U.S. dollars and wanting to convert them into pesos to be spendable. When we have people here working in California, Arizona, and other states, they're sending money back to Mexico and stuff, and that's being wired in U.S. dollars, and those dollars have to be converted to pesos. So I think the fear was if people were being deported or whatever and kicked out in mass in this country, then there's less flow, there's less need for pesos and things. So.
Yeah, just that fear. And you got to think of that's a whole different kind of not the entire economy, but if you got however many people, hundreds of thousands, millions of people sending money back to Mexico, Venezuela, wherever it's at, all of a sudden in somebody's hand, and then they go spend it, it's almost like money was created. I mean, it wasn't, but it kind of was. It wasn't a job that they punched a clock at and whatever to get that money. It was just all of a sudden, boom, in their hands. It's like people winning the lottery left and right,
We just have to be careful. Our dollar is going to start stressing our exports there. And, of course, our interest rates are much higher than Germany and other places here. So that's a natural attractant. Unfortunately, a big debt usually results in a higher interest rate. So we're starting to attract these 2.25% 10-year notes after being down at 1.3% are starting to look a little attractive to people overseas. So we have to be, we have to contend with that too, that having a huge amount of debt results in a higher cost. So that works against, that makes the dollar look attractive to people too, is higher rates being paid here on this, in a stable country.
Yeah, the the whole economy thing, there's a lot to it, a lot, and I don't understand it, but I have a better grasp of it than I did. When I say economy, I'm talking about the whole ball, stock markets, values of dollars and foreign currency. Shoot, damn.
Yeah, it's like a three-dimensional, it's like Star Trek with a three-dimensional chessboard. There's three different, there's a lot of moving parts. You got to be careful you don't get sliced with, with all the gears moving and everything. That's exactly right. But,
Yeah, it is. It's I mean, I've enjoyed learning about it, but I'm still a novice. I don't even know if I can be considered a novice, but I've learned to look at a few things to give me a general direction. Okay, I think it's doing this. And I know there's 100 different other things or 1,000 different other things that could affect it, but this and this and this, a good pointer towards doing, what it's doing.
oh, might as well be. How can you say that the economy would be better off with that, the stock market? Then we don't have a capitalist system. We have a socialist system where people can't participate in a corporation unless they own it. You can't have shares of things, and you can't bring companies public, big companies. Everything has to be borrowed. There's no equity. Oh, the world would be doomed without stock markets.
Yeah, that's a whole, yeah. I'm not against the stock market, but by no means.
The problem with the stock market is it's a slave of human nature. And at times when people get greedy and carried away, the stock market goes to these ridiculous levels. And at times that people are fearing for their lives and scared out of their wits, it goes plunging down to levels that don't make sense either. We just can't escape our human nature. That's why it's at certain points very scary or very greedy to us, but it serves a definite purpose.
Yeah, and you would actually, something else to think about, Mike, it's not that they don't have a lot of control, and this is just me spitballing here, not that the banks don't have a lot of control and can be viewed as very evil, especially if you start talking about the Fed and stuff. This is just my personal opinion, the way I look at things and see how things are going. But if you don't have stocks, businesses would be slaves to the banks.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you wouldn't have any, you wouldn't be able to participate in the growth. What would people invest in the future? They,
because I work for a publicly traded company, and a lot of the things that go on in it is when our futures look good, when they see growth, when they see good profits, more people buy stocks, and that's just free money for them to invest, basically.
Yeah, and if you want to point the finger at our government for all this manipulated economy of QEs and stuff. You wonder why the stock market's not rooted in the real world. It's not because of the capitalists out there. It's because of the distortions that have been put in it from people that in government that insist they have a better idea of how to create prosperity instead of earning it. With all these QEs and quantitative easings and all this funny money that's gone in there and these 8 years of ridiculously low interest rates, this is all government created, might as well. But this is not private sector created. Remember, students, when I was going to college, you didn't need student loans. But then the government decided to get into the education business to make it more affordable for more. Now what do we have? An education system that's unaffordable. We didn't have government in healthcare when I was younger. It was all private sector. But government jumped into healthcare in a major way to make it more affordable for more people. Government jumped into the housing business to make housing more affordable to people under Bill Clinton. And everything that governments touch to try to make people's lives better has ended up being the seeds of our own destruction here on so many fronts. It's sad.
Mm-hmm. And it would be the same thing with the stock market. Like you say, if the government wasn't involved, it would just be like, well, if your company's doing shit and people just want to bail out of your stock and you go belly up, oh fucking will.
Yeah. Yeah. So the strong survive and prosper and the weak go down. So, yep.
Yeah. The bailouts, like, damn, who put that in there? Somebody said something about the bailouts. There again, that's the government.
Anything that the government's gotten into to quote try to make it better for people has been a bloody disaster. From Lyndon Johnson's Great Society in 1964 right up the line. Education has been a disaster. Healthcare has been a disaster. The housing market's been a disaster. This is all because of people who think they have a better idea of the way that things should be instead of letting the natural forces of the economy hold sway. Now we pay the price for that.
Well, the biggest arrogance of people that once they get in power, whatever kind of government it is like you say, they think they know better. They think that they can fix something, and that's not their freaking job. Their job is a little bit of foreign relations, a little bit of defense, just keep the wheels greased and all that, not to get involved and wait a minute, I can make this better. Let me stick my fingers in this and we'll make this system better. And that's when they fuck up every time.
When I look at our local Medicaid, Medi-Cal system here in California, and there's no incentive for people not to go to emergency rooms when they have a toothache or they have they hurt their finger playing basketball and all that kind of stuff. So they, because they don't have to pay anything for it, they just abuse it. And you can imagine the scale this goes on across the country. This is all because, we should be taking care of people that won't take care of themselves and refuse to be productive in society. And we're all carrying this huge sack on our back filled with cinder blocks, trying to carry this thing along with less and less people shouldering the weight of it. I just think people point their finger the wrong way. They point the finger at corporations when they should be pointing the finger at the government and the things that the government has done to make us so competitive and to burden us with ridiculous costs going forward.
Yep, agreed. Don't get me wrong out there, anybody. There's some fucking greedy, shitty corporations, but there again, are they just playing the system that the government lets them? And it's a whole big ball of wax. There's
been remember WorldCom and Bernie Madoff and all these people. They're absolutely looking companies, but they tend to eventually have the seed of their own demise in them. You can only keep that bullshit going for so long before something, blow a tire on it or something, and it all comes a cropper. So, when things get tough, our system has a way of flushing out the shit out of the system. When times get tough and you can't hide your scams and stuff anymore, you get flushed out. Unfortunately, you have to take people with you. But there's nothing really the SEC can do to prevent fraud by filing quarterly reports and annual reports. They're all bullshit. Accountants can manipulate numbers to show anything that they want to show at any time. It all depends on the diligence and the decency of the people running these corporations.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they go to college for years to learn how to figure out an equation. Oh, let me reverse engineer this equation for that to work out.
But it's going to be interesting times coming up.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think I got a lot of positive hope that we might continue on for a little while without the shit hitting the fan, or however you want to put it. So we'll see. We'll see. I think we dodged a bullet with Hillary, and not saying Trump's going to be our savior, but I don't think he's going to be our downfall.
Yeah, I think the scary thing to me is that we borrowed so much for so many years to artificially sustain a prosperity that's not really warranted in this country right now. When you have the equivalent of the New England states on disability, and people on pensions making $200,000 a year, and I mean there's been all kinds of inequities built into our system that all cost money in the long run, and just borrowing. It can be a short-term gap, but over the longest run, it's going to reduce your standard of living dramatically when it becomes impossible to borrow anymore. And that's where I think the prepping comes in here, because we know that ultimately there's going to be a price to pay. Yeah, it's like Jay John said, we've been living beyond our means for a while because it was easier to just borrow and run up the credit card than to face the realities of asking people to pay more for what you're asking them to, what you want to have.
Yep. Yeah, America's hadn't been paying the price for how our manufacturing and everything. I mean, a lot of people have, don't get me wrong, but still living pretty high on the hard in general.
Yeah, I just want people to get the idea that business is not the enemy. Business is the foundation of which government rests upon, and the ability to raise taxes instead of having to borrow for things that you want to do. I mean, that's the reality. If you don't have a business, if you don't have a foundation of business and enterprise in a nation, you're nothing.
Yeah, we've been headed toward being a third world country that kept on.
Yeah, exactly, because we're failing to recognize the real enemy within.
Exactly. It's unless you got some other topic you want to.
I got nothing else. So it's interesting.
We're really close to 2 hours, so if you want to go ahead and end this, we'll close this out.
Yeah, I think we covered a lot of stuff. I think we're very hopeful, is my own read on this, that keep our fingers crossed. That some things can start to be reversed. I mean, anybody expects great change in the short term is apt to be disappointed, but it can be refreshing to turn the tide of people's expectations, to push people to start doing things for their own selves instead of leaning on government, or I feel sad in the morning, so I got to be on disability. I mean, we got to turn the mindset around in this country to be productive. We can't just carry people. There's a cost to having food on the table, a roof over your head, heat, hot water, and somebody's paying for that, but they're not. It's being borrowed. So that's it. Thanks, TR, for having me on again, and thank you, Side Chat. You guys are the best.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Thank you, Roser, for being on here. We all missed you last week, but it all worked out. Like you said, you had your chat, and we had a election chat, so it was all good. And we will see you next week. For those that come check out the Sunday night chat, be a Sunday night chat at 9:30. Enjoyed it, everybody. Thanks for coming by. Thanks for participating. I try to watch. I don't catch every comment, but I catch most of them. Even if I don't reply, I'm reading them. It's like reading a book every time I do a chat. So, but it's been fun, and there were some really good subjects. Maybe learn something here and there, and we'll do it again.
Yeah, you got some really smart people on your chat. And
Yeah,
no
we're
offense,
great.
Midas Welby. I just picked that. I mean, I think you can kind of tell I'm a real hardcore libertarian, free market kind of. You know, the invisible hands work best. So, all right, TR, thank you.
All right. Yeah, no problem. And we'll see you next week, Rosie.
Yep.
See everybody.